The wait is finally over, and Metroid Prime 4 is here. And the game starts as Samus reacts and is caught up in the middle of yet another space pirate scuffle with the Galactic Federation, before a mishap with a strange artifact sees Samus zapped away to the new planet of Vuros and enlisted by the holographic ghosts of the Lemorn to help preserve and release their dead civilization's knowledge into the wider galaxy. In order to do this, it's a familiar sounding quest. You've got to find, reach and retrieve 5 special keys from 5 different biomes and regions on this planet. But, as is tradition, Samus has been stripped of her equipment, and she's given the beginnings of a brand new set of gear, almost all of it with a slick new purple hue, because almost everything is also psychic. A gemstone has been embedded in her helmet, so the scanning visor also allows for a variety of telekinetic manipulations. The beam cannon can now fire guided bolts, there's barely visible platforms and grapple points that you need the psychic view and psychic grapple to use and manipulate, and it goes far beyond this as well. Admittedly, the nomenclature is pretty ham-fisted, but it is an effective blend of the old and new, successfully adding a new layer of gameplay and interactions on top and around the core gameplay from Metroid Prime's past. And admittedly, this can be a little bit confounding at times, especially when confronted by a puzzle that leans on a less commonly used mechanic. I often forgot that I could turn a morph ball bomb into a grabbable psychic bomb to trigger raised up nodes that were out of reach, for example. You have that same kind of blend of old and new, from a Metroid series perspective anyway, for the controls and the combat. The fundamentals are now those of a modern first-person shooter, and you'll generally be familiar with them if you've played Metroid Prime Remastered. Though you still lock on with the left trigger and automatically circle strafe around enemies. This will generally be very familiar to anyone that's played Metroid Prime Remastered. This means that you can easily keep moving and evading incoming attacks thanks to this particular difference to a typical first-person shooter. And then once you're locked on, your actual target point on screen can be moved around using the right stick or with motion control after touch. Alternatively, you can drop in and out of mouse mode when playing with detached Joy-Con, getting more of a PC first-person shooter style control scheme, which certainly has advantages for quick and precise aiming. But personally, I kept things very vanilla, playing almost purely with controller, no motion controls, and then regularly re-aiming with a snap as needed. This generally worked very well for me, though it is fair to say that this general control scheme does struggle a bit when trying to target certain enemies in a crowd. Some of the combat heavy sections really throw a lot of enemies at you, and sometimes you need to target a particular one that is most dangerous to you. And you've also got targeting of weak spots during a larger scale boss battle, as the enemy's moving around, that weak point is moving, and it's difficult sometimes to get the precise aim. Those moments aren't particularly common, and you can overcome them with a little bit of patience, as the game generally feels quite forgiving in these more frantic and frenetic moments. Through the opening biome of this adventure, the mixture of nature and sandstone-like ruins feels like it ably demonstrates the end of the Lemorn civilization and how nature has been corrupted as it's returned. From here, things get far more heavy metal though. You've got lightning-powered factories, facilities deep in a volcano and beyond. It might actually start to feel like the Lemorn are Bond villains sometimes. These are typical elemental archetypes for these biomes, but I really enjoyed how the Lemorn facilities and the technologies that they've developed have got more than a hint of H.R. Geiger, Alien and Prometheus to their look and feel. It's obviously not wholly original because of this, but this biomechanical style absolutely works for me. Instead of linking these regions together directly, they are joined up by the barren desert of Sol Valley, this wide open expanse that you really need Samus's new Viola motorbike to cross in any sensible amount of time. This is a pretty slick addition, and it's fun to zip up and over the sand dunes. It's just as easy as clicking point and go, basically. And you're crashing through green crystals and searching for the handful of secrets and points of interests that you can find between locations. You can also be attacked during these moments by a few different types of fast-moving enemy, but thankfully things are kept quite light and simple thanks to having a locking homing disc attack. Or alternatively, you can actually just generally avoid these encounters and just run away. The only issue with this area is that it doesn't really feel like there's much to do here. There is this handful of Breath of the Wild style puzzle temples to seek out, and there's all of these outcroppings of green crystals that you need to help power up one particular part of Samus' gear. But it is largely just connective tissue between the regions, and there's not that much to distract you as you go back and forth. And you will be going back and forth plenty. Backtracking and exploring newly accessible parts of the world as you get new abilities is a key part of the Metroidvania formula. And in some ways, Metroid Prime 4 does this very well, and in others, it makes it a bit of a chore. Actually returning to previous locations obviously isn't fast travel fast if you're having to do it manually, which you are, but thanks to the bike, it's also not all that time consuming. It does still feel like dead time, but the actual amount of seconds and minutes that you spend trekking back and forth isn't too bad when you feel focused on an objective. The real problem, I feel, is that the game simply doesn't leave you alone to soak in this atmosphere and figure things out for yourself. Early on in the adventure you meet Specialist Miles McKenzie, who fights alongside you for a brief period before setting up a base camp for himself and any other Federation troopers that you find along the way, putting together a ragtag team of survivors through this game. They are a contrasting group of characters, but Mackenzie stands out for his, let's say, quirky style of dialogue. He's not a soldiery soldier character. And that's especially true when compared to the more by-the-book nature and tone of some of the other troopers, who I almost inevitably liked a bit more. And I have mixed feelings about this and how it affects the storytelling alongside the stoic and very silent Samus, who barely even nods in recognition of a comment. The vast majority of the game, though, is still spent on your own, with these rare interjections over comms from other characters when exploring a region. But it's once you've completed an area, beaten a boss, or found a new tech part, that it feels like Mackenzie just helicopters himself in like an overly present parent to interfere and make sure that you don't get lost or frustrated at any single second. Now, I know that this style of hand-holding is important for the game's accessibility to less experienced gamers and those who are completely new to the Metroid franchise, but there should really be an option to turn this off for those that are much more experienced or who want to just take their time and explore things for themselves. What's even more frustrating is the handful of occasions where Mackenzie is actively misleading by suggesting that I visit one locale or another only for me to hit a familiar dead end and have to double back and then get a new comms message from him. If I'd done this on my own, then that's fine, like I've wasted my own time, but for this to be because the game has effectively lied to me, it is just flat out annoying. But for the overarching story, I really liked both the drip feed of learning what happened to the Lemorn and how their civilization died, picking up the journals and logs as I go, and finding their psychic statues that give you narrative info dumps. The team of Federation troopers did also grow on me for their key moments and their narrative payoffs on the whole, but again, there's just a niggling sense that the tone has been shifted for this game compared to the very isolationist style of previous Metroid games. But on the whole, Metroid Prime 4 is a great return and a new beginning for this series, which has spent far too many years away. It's not the strongest Metroid Prime for the narrative and the impact that you feel, but the new psychic powers add a refreshing layer alongside familiar abilities and the general feel and the tone that makes this series so beloved. That's all that we've got for our review of Metroid Prime 4. The game is out in just a couple of days, and I know that there's an awful lot of Metroid fans who are very keen to go hands-on with it. So I hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen here, and if you have done so, please make sure to like, subscribe, click the bell icon, the usual YouTube things, so that hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye!